Welcome in, everybody, to another MLS Monday by Scarves and Spikes. Tyler here alongside Sydney and Henry. What's going on, guys?
Not much. Doing better than Peter Vermes this week.
Just a little bit.
I'm carrying on the bet from last week, if you guys recall.
How many weeks in a row can we go with that?
How many weeks? The second week in a row, coach has been fired the day of the show. I feel like this is a little mini tradition for us in 2025. Not a fun tradition. Not a fun tradition if you're an MLS head coach, but I have a feeling this might not be the last coach that gets fired this season, or maybe this. Well, I was going to say this month, but really this is March 31st.
I mean, this might as well be April. You know what's funny though? I was thinking like, kind of weird they would do it straight on a Monday. Normally they let that kind of stuff settle in, like for a day. Like they'll bring him in on Monday and fire him, and then they do it on Tuesday. But you couldn't be like, "Hey, we fired Peter Vermes on April Fool's Day." Nobody would be like,
"No one would believe it if it happened tomorrow."
Right? That's what I'm saying. I barely believe it now.
Yeah, you're fired. April Fools.
It is crazy. Second in a row. Definitely not the only guy that was on the hot seat for sure. We definitely talked about a few last week, though we got all of our predictions wrong about the next one that would go. But I mean, let's just dive into it. Longest tenured soccer coach in most of the world, honestly, not just the U.S., but I mean, in
17 years.
That's like an abnormal lifespan for
like almost my life.
In kindergarten that when he was fired.
Henry, how dare you? Get out. Get out. No, it is wild though. You got to give him credit where it's due, really quick. Peter Vermes did a lot for that city. What's up, Jordan? Peter Vermes made Sporting Kansas. It was a successful club. He did a ton for the culture in that city, especially the soccer culture. But the past couple of years have been rough. I remember talking about a couple of years ago when he got that 4-year contract extension. I was like, I don't know that this needs to happen. This is kind of out of nowhere. Sydney, I know you said you thought he would kind of pick and choose when he decided to leave, but here we are. What do you think?
I mean, he's been there forever. It seems like he was synonymous with Sporting Kansas City, and as we talked about, one of the longest tenured managers in the world. I mean, the sport has changed. Just not only MLS has changed, but football as a whole has changed in the last decade and a half plus. And he was sort of the constant in MLS and in American soccer. I mean, I'm old enough to remember where maybe a couple people said, "What if he would be hired as the U.S. men's national team manager?" And this whole other discussion. I don't think it would work anyway, but he was pretty Vermes. He was Sporting Kansas City, and now he's gone. The press release said he mutually departed the club. They came to a mutual agreement that he had to go, and I feel like that's to soften the blow to say he was fired. I mean, but he had to go, and we're right. He had to go at this point. The club has stagnated and is showing no signs of progressing. Lost again, and here we are. Now it's time for a new voice in the locker room at Sporting Kansas City.
It was time for sure. Look, it's funny because I was looking up some of the stats for an article that I had to write on the Spanish side of MLS about that departure. MLS is 30 this year. He's been around for half of that. SKC was one of the original, more than half of that. SKC was one of the original MLS clubs. Yeah. He has led, I think he coached 500 or 600 games for Sporting Kansas City across 17 years. That is more than half of the games the club has ever played.
It's incredible.
So just what he's done, 3 U.S. Open Cups, 1 MLS Cup, and made the team competitive for a while. They were a very competitive force in the Western Conference. But like y'all said, look, the game has changed. The league has changed. The talent is different at this point. And the same old just isn't going to cut it. So certainly I think it was the right time, especially given of the past 3 seasons, SKC has missed out on the playoffs twice. And then the time that they make it, 2023, they kind of scraped in and then lost in the play-in game to, I think, was it St. Louis or maybe they made the round, right, or something. I don't remember exactly, but they got in to like the play-in game, like 8th place. So it wasn't good. So I think it was to make the change, and obviously, if you're on Twitter, you probably saw the supporters groups were calling for him to resign, to step down, and it wasn't because they hated him; it was because they were tired of a mediocre team. They've been.
I mean, I think Sydney, the right word that you used was they're stagnant.
Yeah,
and they felt stagnant for a long time. It's felt just like you're just not evolving. This MLS has changed. I mean, Atlanta, right? We're always going to default to share things about Atlanta. MLS was a different league entirely when Atlanta came in. That was 2017. That wasn't even half of Peter Vermes' tenure ago in Kansas City.
Yeah,
that's what's wild about it. And it's not that he didn't maybe evolve a little bit with some of the times. And I don't want to knock on him in the sense that, like, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing. It's not that. It just wasn't changing. Nothing was showing any signs of being different. And I don't think Kansas City needs a drastic, massive change. The fans are there. They just need to invest a little bit better in, obviously, now your coach, but your players in your academy. And they just haven't done that lately.
So that kind of leads us to kind of the next question about this job. How attractive is it in league circles? This is a very passionate market in the Kansas City area, a traditional club. Henry, like you said, one of the charter clubs in MLS. Started out, of course, as the Wiz, then became the Wizards before rebranding around 2009, 2010 to Sporting Kansas City. This is a club that, Tyler, you said it, with some investment. And it's not to say the front office doesn't care. It's not the ownership cares, I'm sure. The ownership knows what's going on, what they need to do. And I think they're going to do their due diligence in finding a coach that can embrace the culture that Sporting Kansas City, that Kansas City, Kansas, Missouri, that Midwest area provides, because
I know especially
say it again.
I said I know a guy.
You know, no, but I know what you're thinking. No, but you look at Sporting Kansas City. I mean, they're the only game in town. You have the Chiefs, obviously, but then Sporting Kansas City is the only other professional franchise in the Kansas City metropolitan area. So there's a huge following, probably more than most markets of its size. So yeah, you need to do a good job in finding somebody who can come in and not shake things up, but really embrace the culture that Peter Vermes has established. Now, Jim Curtin maybe getting a call. Gio Savarese could be getting a call. Tyler, I bet you're thinking of Rob Valentino.
Rob Valentino.
I don't see.
Welcome to Kansas City.
Yeah. See. I don't know. I don't know if Valentino would be. I think he'd be on their short list, sure, but I don't know if he'd be their preferred candidate, simply because of that experience.
Culture, amazingly.
Yeah. But I think if you're Sporting Kansas City, though, you want a coach that's established, knows what he's doing, has been in MLS for a while. I feel like if you do hire somebody, the names I mentioned, Curtin and Savarese, should be some of your first calls. Do you try to poach a longtime assistant? You try to poach a international coach? I don't know. But I think this is a pretty desirable job. It just needs the right coach to step in and help it.
Yeah, 100%. Henry, I want to get your insight too. We haven't mentioned it yet, but is it? Haven't got this pronunciation right, but it's Kerry Zavagnin.
Yeah, Kerry Zavagnin. Kerry Zavagnin, I think.
Is the interim head coach in the meantime.
Yeah, long-time assistant with Sporting Kansas City, former player. So I imagine he gets essentially an interview, a working job interview.
I want to see whoever it is. I mean, it's still early, right? Very early.
Yeah.
But I want to see that coach kind of lead the charge and take them to the next level culturally. Because I mean, you mentioned the Chiefs. That is a golden opportunity with how successful they've been over the past few years to elevate SKC even more. And could you imagine, like, what was it, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, when everybody found out that SKC had Ronaldo's discovery rights?
Yeah.
And he had ended up in SKC
Hilarious.
around the same time that they went on the Super Bowl run.
That would be absolutely fantastic for that market. You got Mahomes on one side of the river, Ronaldo on the other side of the river.
Put it on the map.
Yeah.
Put it on the map. Henry, what you got?
I mean, not much more to add. Just that between the two jobs that are open right now, and I would say that Sporting Kansas City is the more attractive one. I think ownership is a little bit more willing to invest. Certainly, this past window, you got some talent in the form of Dejan Joveljic up front. He's a very reliable striker. You have talent with Daniel Shalhoub. He has showed in previous seasons that he can be an effective attacking piece in Major League Soccer. And SKC also has a really good academy. I think it's an underrated academy. They've generated, Daniel Shalhoub came out of that academy. Gianluca Busio came out of that academy. You've had several, players come out of there that have worked and have been very, very good in MLS. So I think that they have a foundation for whoever takes over to do a good job and potentially take this team back to the summit where it should be as one of the original clubs. I think it just depends on making sure that the culture is right, making sure that they can work with these players a little bit more. Yeah. But I do think that having just someone different on the touchline and in training is going to make a difference all on its own. I think this club just needs a breath of fresh air. Nothing on Peter Vermes, but I think just seeing the same guy and just kind of having the same talks, and I don't know, right. Maybe that's a part of it. I mean, there's a reason managers don't typically stay in the same job for way too long. I mean, usually I would like to see the average of how long a manager typically stays at a club, but I don't think it's that long.
I mean, it's got to be, I would say 3 to 5 on the very high end, because if you are good, you're probably going to get a better job. And if you're okay, you're probably going to hang out for a little bit, but that's not, eventually that time's going to run out. And like Tadaya said, like, he's a great manager. He really is. Yeah. He did amazing things for that club. Maybe he takes a break, like I said, breath of fresh air, bring somebody new in. And then before we jump over real quick to Miami, I'll just throw it out there. What's the name that you, out of all the managers, because we did it for Atlanta and a ton of other clubs in the offseason, Jordan said would Vinny Sartini work, but who do y'all think?
I think if you look at the overall track record, I say Jim Curtin should be at the top of your list, and then below that, Savarese. I mean, because those two guys, I believe, were on contract this year, and those run out, so they're going to be looking for their next job sooner rather than later. I mean, if I'm Gio, I'm kind of more inclined to take a job at this point because, I'm sure he enjoys TV. He does a great job on MLS Season Pass, MLS 360, but I feel he would be more motivated to take a job rather than, or more than Jim Curtin. I think Jim Curtin just wants to hang out just for a little bit, just chill out, enjoy his time off. I think we'll see him right back in the cycle in 2026. But that's just my pick. Curtin Savarese. I don't know, Henry. What do you think?
I think Savarese. I think Savarese is a strong pick. I think he would be my top guy because from what I'm hearing, Jim Curtin kind of just wants to chill for a bit, not really take over a club. So he'd be the one. If you're looking for a guy with MLS experience, definitely I think he would be your top target. Trying to think who else.
Rob Valentino
could work, but he doesn't have really the a whole lot of head coaching experience. His only experience
And
was
he doesn't need that. He literally can just go
Yeah,
say,
he
"Hey,
does.
look, last year, 4 months ago." Anyway, carry on. Let's talk
Is
about
that part though? Okay, here's the thing though, right? Let's say you're part of these fan groups, right? That wrote this letter and we're calling for Vermes to resign and all. And then the club brings in a guy whose only managerial experience was 2 interim stints with Atlanta during some of its worst times.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be satisfied as a fan. And I don't think that's right.
Me neither.
For a club that's trying to kind of get back from this situation that they're in. I think you look for someone who has a track record. And right now, that's either Gio Savarese or Jim Curtin. And I think Jim Curtin won't be an option. So there you go.
I feel like Zavagnin will be more of an option for Sporting Kansas City in their minds than Rob Valentina, because he's a guy that's pretty much been by Vermes' side since Vermes came into town, and even before that, played for Sporting Kansas City / the Wiz / the Wizards. So he knows all about that club. Colonel says Rob Valentina was Midwest himself. I mean, he's from Chicago, not super far from Kansas City, but still the Midwest either way. But I don't see it. I think before they go with Valentino, they would probably check on Zavagnin to see if he performs. And then Jordan saying in the chat, Courtois. No, I don't think so. I think it's too soon for Courtois. I think given what he was, and granted, the front office didn't really do him any favors. I mean, what else is doing Montreal? But so I don't know if he's the right coach for Sporting Kansas City. I don't know if he's one that moves the needle for them. So I'm sure a lot of names will pop up. Let's not limit ourselves to U.S. What in Canada? What about overseas? I'm sure Sporting Kansas City will leave no stone unturned as we look to hire a new head coach for the first time,
indeed.
guys, and a decade and a half plus.
Yeah,
insane.
Well, best of luck to Peter for sure.
Yeah,
legend, no matter which way you look at it.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, next up, we have 2 unbeaten teams left in MLS. One of those is Miami, and Philly didn't make it easy for him at the end, but Miami did take out Philly, stayed unbeaten.
Yeah. Who's the best team in the MLS right now? Is it Miami unequivocally, or is it Columbus? Between the two,
right now it's Messi or Miami.
Yeah,
Messi, Freudian slip.
Yeah, I mean, because
it's
not just what they've done in MLS too, though. It's also Champions Cup. Like they're killing it there as well. So
yeah, no, and just looking at the quality of the roster, Miami just has more, a better and deeper roster, even without Messi, who just accidentally slipped out of my mouth. Yeah, I have to go with Miami right now until Columbus finds the next Cucho Hernandez.
Well, like Tyler said, Philly didn't make it easy. I mean, they had 6 shots on target to Miami's 3, 2.5 to 1.9 XG. So they had their opportunities. They certainly did. And if you're playing a team like Miami, you got to take those chances. And Philadelphia did it until the end. Gostak scored. He'll get his either way. But you have to take your chances if you're playing Miami, especially if you're playing Miami on the road. And the Union didn't do it. And ultimately, Miami were the better team on the night. I feel like if that match is at Philly or in Chester, guys, maybe Philadelphia sneaks away with the win. But now if you look at Philly, that's 2 straight losses, right? So I don't know if you want to hit the panic button for them, but have they come back down to earth just a little bit? It'll be interesting to see how things progress for them over these next maybe 3 to 5 matches. Can they kind of recapture the form that they enjoyed to start the season? You need Gazda, you need your top players to continue to perform.
I think Philly, as much, wearing this shirt, as much as it pains me to say this, they really have shown that the first, 2, I mean, I know we're not far, but the first couple of weeks were not fluky.
Yeah.
This is what Miami has been doing, and they've been doing it well. Like, they don't play always a full 90 minutes of great soccer, but they play about 60 minutes of great soccer and 30 minutes of still pretty good soccer, and it's enough to do the job. Go back to the Atlanta game, right?
Yep.
Like 2 really crappy goals are what had them come out of the bins with a win.
Right.
Last night or night before, whenever it was. Philly, the stats were there. They were pushing hard at the end, and Miami was teetering on the brink for sure. They deserved to come out of there with a point. They really did. And so I don't know, man. I got to give props to Philly. I did not expect them to be where they're at right now in terms of just how they're playing overall, because even when they lose, they're still playing fairly well. So, it's a good game.
So for Miami, question is, what will that roster look like for Champions Cup? They have a short week. They take on LAFC on Wednesday. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit more toward the end of the show, but what will Mascherano do as far as that roster is concerned? Do you play Messi? Do you rest Messi? You know, that's going to be obviously the big question. He's coming off a minor injury. He didn't play for Argentina during World Cup qualifying the other week. So sort of always a handle with care situation when it comes to Messi. Of course, he scored. He came out as a substitute and scored against Philadelphia. But again, how does Mascherano manage that roster? How many changes does he make from the team against Philadelphia, and then with a match this coming weekend in MLS in mind? That's the big question, I feel like, for Mascherano and Inter Miami. So it's always that juggling act, right? When you have Champions Cup, when you have other competitions, that roster, that starting 11, especially with Messi, especially with Suarez.
Yeah, I mean, I think the roster that they rolled out against Philadelphia was fairly rotated. I mean, you had Benja Kromowski starting in there. You had Robert Taylor. You had Fafa Pico, Federico Redondo, several players that aren't necessarily in their strongest 11 or that have played in games where they have featured their strongest 11. You had Segovia on the bench. He's been fantastic for this team. You had Yannick Bright, who, talking with a lot of Miami folks, they say that he is one of their better players in midfield at times. And obviously, I mean, they had Messi on the bench. And they have a game midweek, which I think we'll talk about later in our CCC section. But they're going up against, I believe it's LAFC, if I'm not mistaken. That is a tough game. Whether, LAFC is in good form right now or not, they've been one of the more competitive teams in MLS, and they can give you a surprise if you're not prepared. So Miami has to go all in for that. And so it made sense for them to rotate for this game. And even then, putting out, a semi-rotated lineup, they played good. I mean, for the most part, if you look at some of the momentum, they were dominating most of the game. And of course, game state, when you trail off, I mean, you're winning by 2, the game state kind of shifts because Philadelphia needs to attack. That's part of the reason why they had so many shots and why they were kind of, they had more of the front foot later into the game.
Yeah.
But overall, it was a Miami dominant game. So credit to them. And that's why I say that they are better than Columbus right now, because I believe that their roster, even when rotated, can handle a team like Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia is sort of experiencing some of that regression back to the mean that we sort of expected from a team that, quite frankly, didn't have as much investment this offseason compared to other teams. Not to say that they're a bad team, but Miami is a tough team to go up against. And we kind of expect that as the season goes on and you start getting results, you start getting closer to that expected mean. So I will say that I expect for this midweek CCC game that Miami is going to roll out the stronger lineup with more of its featuring starters. And then probably this weekend, you'll see rotation again.
Yeah, because you play TFC over the weekend. So.
Exactly. You don't need much there. So
right. But your academy kids against TFC and let them
run
straight
up disrespect. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to hear from some TFC fans after the show.
I think they'd agree with you, honestly, the way the team's playing right now.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people up there would.
We love you, Toronto. Canada.
All right, so real quick, before we jump to the next one, y'all be sure to check out scarvesandspikes.com. We got tons of news articles going up on there weekly throughout the week. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help us out a ton. And then go check out Patreon. Get in the Discord with us. Come hang out with us. Patreon.com/scarves and spikes. We've got the watch alongs that we do. Of course, the Discord. You got discounts on merch. We're kind of revamping some things as well in terms of like stuff that's offered and all, but got a few different tiers. So y'all go check out patreon.com/scarves and spikes. And now we have to talk about this game. We can't be an MLS Monday. I know we have our Atlanta reaction show.
Yeah.
And then the Wednesday show.
Yeah.
But this was a 4-3.
Which you missed, by the way.
Was that?
Which you missed in person. We talked
I
about
did miss it in person. Like my obligatory one game a year that I missed. And 7 goals.
Yeah.
I guess I'm just not allowed back in the bins. I don't know.
Gotta stay away. Season credential revoked.
Right.
I'm done. Cooked. So y'all both were there. I watched it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
I gotta say, when you boil it down, this was another game where Atlanta struggled for about 2/3 of the match, and then they turned it on. But this time, when they turned it on, they really turned it on.
Really turned it on.
Tactical tweaks. There were obviously some changes, some folks being moved around, some folks being played in positions that maybe nobody thought in the beginning of the season that's where they're going to be playing. But they did, and it all worked out in the end. You have a couple players that made the team of the week. I mean, overall, like that final 30 minutes, Atlanta, I mean, it had to be aggressive, right? You're down 3-1. You have to play aggressive. It's kind of what you were just talking about with Miami and Philly. Like Philly's down 2-0. They have to turn up the heat. That's not always easy, but Atlanta did it, and they did it really well. And, you know, some of that came down to some individual talent, but a lot of it came down to the team really just working together.
Yeah, they needed the win.
Yes.
And Henry, you and I were sitting in the press box Saturday night, and I could just feel I'm not gonna repeat what I said Sunday. If you guys want to watch that or listen to that, Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeart, definitely do that. Just search Scarves and Spikes. But I like I said the other day, it just felt like the tension was just at an all-time high as soon as Hannes Wolf scored that third goal for NYC. And you can sort of sense it's like, oh my gosh, how can this team do this at home in front of their own fans on a 4-match winless streak at that? It's like unbelievably bad. But then Dialab makes his technical tweaks. Sabu moves to the right. Alexei Miranchuk moves back further to take the place essentially of Mateusz Klich. Almiron moves to the 10, and all of a sudden, guys, it's almost like a switch flipped, and this team looked to some extent like prime 2018. It's just amazing how much that change just switched things, Henry. And again, you were there sitting beside me in the press box, and we were talking throughout the entire night just how much it changed and how much it flipped the script for Atlanta United. Part of it, sure, NYCFC laying their foot off the gas pedal with the 3-1 lead, but what Atlanta United did, Henry, can't be understated. This could be a win, talking from a neutral standpoint, this could be a win that jumpstarts their whole season. It really could. You have 2 more matches at home coming up against FC Dallas and the New England Revolution. You needed this one because the last thing you want is to continue this winless streak and fall further behind in the standings. Had to win that. Had to win it, and you did.
Yeah, we said that this team needs 9 points from these 3 games. We got 3 of those. You very nearly lost them, but they managed to turn it around with some of those changes. And yes, I'm going to bring it up. I wrote about them. And I guess the answer is yes. Alexei Miranchuk is the Nagbe replacement. Yay!
Long awaited.
But look, and I'm going to write something else about it this week and kind of break down how the changes kind of did open the game up a little bit more for them. Because obviously, yes, it is game state related also. Yeah. I mean, just like with Miami, Philly, Atlanta had to go look for the game. They were down 2 goals. They had to go push things forward. And the changes that Ronnie Dyla made were more offensive-oriented changes. Bringing on a winger and a fullback for a fullback and a midfielder. But the position that he put Alexei Miranchuk in allowed the team to have better distribution, building up from the back. You had someone there who had a very good long-range passing, very good short-range passing. And if you look at some of the clips, which I'm going to try to get together a series of clips for this article that I'm writing, you see just how good Alexei Miranchuk is at progressing the ball from further back. He can switch the play very easily. He can, beat pressure. It's what you want from number 8. And Miguel Almiron, he even said in the post-match press conference, like, he feels better at the 10. Yeah. That's where this team needs to play him, man. He's
Ronnie Dyla, play me at the 10 for God's sake.
Yes.
Like,
and Saba needs to play on the right because he's just so different. We saw it. It's like he was playing on the left before Cincinnati, basically invisible, basically didn't do anything. Played on the right against Cincinnati, totally different.
Yeah.
Started on the left in this game, not great. Moved to the right, Saba time.
Yeah,
like it was night and day. And so I think at this point you found where these players work best. I don't think you can go back. I think you gotta kind of run with these changes a little bit. I think that's the lineup you got to see against Dallas. Now, what else about this Atlanta side? I mean, the attack is clicking. All 4 of the, I guess the slam combo were involved in this game. Alexei Miranchuk scored his first goal. That was when he was at the 10.
On one of them.
Yeah.
What was that?
I said also involved in one whole goal. 4 of them all involved in it.
Yep.
Exactly. And you start to see them kind of connect, and you start to see them associate with each other. And it's good to see that chemistry start to build. This is just the beginning of that. We're going to see that kind of accelerate a little bit more. And hopefully, as some of the players come back from injury, you have Pedro Amador. We don't know how long he's going to be out. We'll know more tomorrow. Tristan Miumba, Edwin Mosquera. You have several players that once they start coming back are going to actually help provide a little bit more depth to this team also.
And before you chime in, Tyler, we have to mention just super quick Dom Chonky. If you're watching from a neutral standpoint, listening from a neutral standpoint, we have to mention them. 17-year-old former academy player, now Atlanta United 2. Came in and did okay. Had the one mistake that led to the Hannes Wolf goal in the second half. Did okay. And, Ronnie Dyla said the future's bright for him. Tough spot to come in with the Amador injury, Henry, that you just mentioned. But, had to come in emergency standpoint. And it could have done better. But for what he was, largely outside of that one really bad touch, was okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said last night, I'm not worried about Chonky at all. He got thrown into an absolute crap show, admittedly. And what I mean by that is you're getting the call right before you come out of the locker room
20 minutes before.
Saying, hey man, it's you. You're starting, not Pedro Amador. 17 years old. That's a big burden to shoulder. He did fine. I'm not concerned at all about Dom Chonky. Watched him all the way through the preseason. He's fine. I see Colonel saying in the chat, he was like, let's not go too far with the Atlanta second half. New York City gave away 3 goals by stupid mistakes. Yes, but also on the inverse of that, so did Atlanta. This game easily could have ended, if the game was played well, 2-1 Atlanta. Atlanta, I think, still wins this game if you take away the mistakes.
Yeah.
The one point that I wanted to hit on was Latte Lath's goal, the last one, the game winner, because it's twofold. There's been a lot of conversation back and forth about whose fault was it, Martin's or Matt Freese's. I think you also have to add in the X factor that is Emmanuel Latte Lath's speed.
Mm-hmm.
A defender in that situation, yes, do the safe thing. Send the ball. Send it out. Whether you and Bill Hamid popped in on this interaction on Twitter, former DC goalkeeper and then Memphis goalkeeper. Yeah, defender, you got to send it out. Just get rid of the ball. But also, as a goalkeeper, be more commanding of your area. I don't agree that he couldn't have made it to that ball with Martins kind of helping shield a little bit. That's if you weren't having Emmanuel Latelath, who runs like a gazelle, flying up on you.
Fittingly being from Africa.
I don't think players, have understood how fast this guy is. It's shockingly fast. And I can only imagine when you're down there on the pitch, how kind of overwhelming it is when you get into a foot race. And in a situation like what happened with that goal, you're just trying to shield the ball because you're hoping your goalkeeper is going to come out.
Yeah.
In theory, with a normal speed guy
who
doesn't have 99 pace in FIFA, you're probably able to shield that long enough for your goalkeeper to come out.
Yeah, but if you see that the goalkeeper isn't coming, because look, Matt Freese isn't on his line. He's a little bit forward, which is what is normally recommended for goalkeeper positioning. He's kind of like on the edge of the 6. But as soon as Thiago Martins sees that he's not coming, he needs to just
100%
kick that out.
Yeah, but it's a bang.
Why are you
decision.
not coming out, Matt?
It's a bang decision, guys.
Okay, but look, but we're gonna look at who's at fault for this goal. I just can't blame Matt Freese.
You can't put it on, but you can't only put it on Martin.
Yes, I can.
No, you
can't.
Yes,
I can. If he doesn't kick it out, that goal doesn't happen. Matt Freese doesn't need to come out when Thiago Martins tells him to come out. He needs to come out when he sees that he can get to the ball, and he sees Latelath bearing down on him like a freaking train, and he's doesn't want to risk getting caught in the middle of that. He doesn't
and I get that, but where's the
communication
happening from Matt to his defender?
His communication to the defender
only
was
Matt Freese
not going for the ball.
I think that's only Matt that can see how far out he has and how much time he has, though. That's the thing.
Guys, I think that's the thing, though. There is no communication in the moment. So whether you think it's Freeze, whether you think it's Martins, has to take charge of that situation. And it's tough because it's a bang situation.
Like, does Freeze need to command it more? Absolutely. He needs to say, like, that's my ball, or get that out of there or something. If he says nothing, then I could see how that's kind of
someone needs to say something, regardless. Someone needs to say something.
But the experienced DP defender, by the way, that seems absurd to me. DP defender, Thiago Martins.
He's also the captain.
What are we talking about? Exactly, and captain. No, and then the way he reacts after is just embarrassing.
No, that was crappy.
Come on.
My point is, it's not just his fault. It's both of them. Like, there should have been a lot more happening in that sequence. Like, you can't just blame one or the other. It's both of them, 100%.
For me, yeah, I respect that opinion, but for me, it is way more on Thiago Martins. If he, as an experienced center back, does not kick that ball out when he sees that the goalkeeper is not coming, I don't know what to tell you. Literally, kick it out for a corner, blast it somewhere else, but don't just let Latelath just come and steal it from under your nose.
To that point, I'll reference what Felipe tweeted. Freeze had failed to come off his line numerous times throughout the night. So there's that element to work into it as well. Either way, guys, if you're looking at it from an NYC perspective, you'll go back and forth on this all night. But either way, somebody, whether you think it's Freeze, whether you think it's Martins, has to communicate in that situation because it costs you the match, plain and simple. It wasn't the only thing that cost you the match, but it cost that moment. Led to game-winning goal, and the reaction from Martins wasn't great at all. That's your captain.
No,
you have to have cool head.
That's embarrassing.
That was garbage. But you have to give Latelath credit because, and I said it last night, that is not an easy finish. It's like forget about how fast he ran to get in between Freese and Martins and make it happen.
No.
But to then be able to just get your foot out for that chip over the top, that is like chef's kiss
at that angle and everything. And also credit to him for not giving up on the play, because most forwards, like I'll say this, Yorgos Giakoumakis would not have made that play.
No.
Yorgos Giacomakis seeing the ball bouncing into the opponent box wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Latte Lot saw it and he kept going, and he knew he had to press. And this was what, like the 80-somethingth minute of the game?
Yeah.
This was late in the game. Legs are heavy. He went for it anyway. So credit to him for that, because it made all the difference.
Real quick, looking at it from an NYC angle, how do you respond after this loss? Hannes Wolf said it. He said we scored 3 goals on the road. How do we lose?
After?
Yeah, absolutely. I will love to hear for that.
Show me the onside documentary.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. But how do you bounce back? I mean, you're not winless in your past 2. You drew Columbus. You scored 3 goals on the road. You're supposed to win, right? And you didn't. And that's what Hannes Wolf said. You have Minnesota, you have Philadelphia coming up, both at home. How did they respond? The Freeze Martinez interaction, does that, I'm sure they made peace. I would like to think they made peace after the match, but does that kind of carry over into later in the season? Sort of some storylines for NYC under Pascal Janssen in his first season that may be worth keeping an eye on. But I think from an NYC standpoint, it's just you have to win that match up 3-1.
Yeah, I think if I'm Janssen, I'm kind of having that conversation today with the group and saying, you scored 3 goals on the road, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to be too concerned about how we lost the game. I mean, you are. Like, you're going to fix mistakes. You're going to have a sit down with Martins and Freese and make sure they're not going to want to kill each other. You got to get that settled. But I think ultimately,
2 foot on the training ground.
Yeah, but put it back on Atlanta and be like, hey, man, that $50 million attack made you pay. I mean, sometimes it'd be like that, and just move on, because you have to have confidence in the fact that you've been scoring goals. That's the message that you've got to send to your team, and then you move forward to next week.
No, definitely, for sure.
On the other side of the country, the LA Galaxy.
Let me just say this real quick. It was a rough day on Saturday if you're an LA soccer fan.
Yeah.
Galaxy lose to San Diego, or Galaxy lose to Orlando, heartbreaker, and then LAFC loses to San Diego. But let's talk about the Galaxy first.
So I think we have it in our notes. Heartbreaker.
Yeah.
Heartbreaker is the way, which, I mean, to be fair, so is this New York City game. There's a few heartbreakers, but this is a heartbreaker. The 90th minute is what made it happen. So what you got, Sydney?
MLS Cup winning keeper John McCarthy. What happened, man? What happened?
Now we know why he wasn't starting before.
they cannot get the goalkeeping position.
That's not a great way to keep your job, John. No, that's
what, just a howler, man.
Yeah.
Oh, and at the end, like at the last minute too.
Yeah. Has to do better on that. Has to. And look, credit to Luis Muriel for a really classy finish, but John McCarthy, that's, for most keepers, that's meat and drink, really. Has to make that save, and he doesn't, and ultimately Orlando gets a key win away. I mean, we talk all the time about, hey, it's tough to win away in MLS. Orlando's done it. They've gone into and granted, look, it's LA Galaxy. They're walking wounded at this point. They're getting some players back, but for the most part, they're walking wounded. And they have a short week, too, with Champions Cup coming up. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but you remain winless. And this has to be probably the worst feeling loss of the season, because he at least had a point. And then John McCarthy, like you said, Henry, has a howler and goal, and you end up losing the match. So 6 matches, 2 points out of 6 matches. You have Champions Cup coming up against Pumas or Tigres, I beg your pardon. Where do you go from here if you're Galaxy? I guess you're just treading water at this point.
I guess good news is that you got Joseph Paintsel back from injury, that you're starting to get some folks back. I mean, Mickey Yamane is back. You've got, hopefully, Paintsel should be good. Good to start in the next game. Granted, the challenges continue because you have CONCACAF Champions Cup midweek against Tigres, which is not an easy team to go up against.
Not even a little bit, dude. It's not like they can't catch a
They
break.
can't catch a break. That's the thing. They're still reduced, and you're not getting Ricky Puig back until after
Right.
Halfway through the season, and so they've still got some crawling across like broken glass to go through, basically. That's the metaphor right now. Is what they're trying to kind of crawl through broken glass or walk on Legos, basically, until they can get to the point where Ricky Puig can join back into the team, and you can get some of these players back.
If you're a Galaxy player, you don't want to walk on any Legos at this point. Maybe out for like 6 months.
Yeah, tear an ACL for sure.
What?
You don't need that.
Good. Yeah, exactly.
I think for me, man, I'll give you my version of it. Not walking on Legos. I think it's like the hot coals type walk, because you do it, you get to the other end, and you're like, I'm actually okay. And that's what's going to happen to them in like July.
Didn't die.
they did die.
Yeah.
The season's not dead yet. I mean, though they do need a couple of points here and there at some point.
Just a couple. That's what they got, a couple points.
They have
that's
a couple.
Couple
I know.
Literally.
Need exactly what they need. But no, I mean, I think you get Pooch back, and then everybody else just kind of settles back in. Paintsville gets time. I think they're going to start snagging a few points. They're not gonna win the Supporters Shield. It is what it is. But I do think they're gonna make it to the playoffs, and I think they'll be okay. I've said that from the beginning, and I'm gonna stick to it until July when they prove me wrong.
Yeah.
And I hope they don't, because I like that LA Galaxy team. I really do. And then Orlando, really quick, over the past couple of years, historically has been a good team on the road. Something to be said there as well, but can't have howlers like that. Right. You already got enough injuries. You can't be making stupid mistakes like that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say I'm still extremely concerned about that midfield. You lost a lot of, not just Ricky Puig. You lost Mark Delgado from that midfield. You lost Gaston Brugman in the offseason. You have Sanabria, who you brought in. He is injured now, and he's going to be out for a little bit. And so it's tough what they're going through right now. And the midfield is so important for them in all aspects of play. So it's just tough for them. And until they get some of those players back and they can really reinforce that area, it's going to continue to be a problem. On the Orlando side, credit to Luis Muriel, who is actually kind of maybe good now. He scored the free kick goal, right? I don't know if he scored it or McCarty kind of just like nudged it in, but
it's a goal nonetheless.
Goal nonetheless.
He goes to his credit.
But Muriel has been a little bit better at the start of the season than he was the start of last season. Maybe he could be living up to that DP tag that Orlando paid for him a year ago.
And real quick before we move on back to the LA side, just super quick. I know they lost, but Christian Ramirez, 4 goals in 4 straight matches across all comps for the Galaxy, scored again against Orlando. So maybe he's catching form, and they need it. They need someone up top to perform. I mean, Marco Royce isn't, so you need somebody to scoring goals, and he's done it. I was kind of hard on him to start the season. It's like he's not going to be. I mean, Joveljic and Ramirez are 2 different players, but I mean, he's filled in pretty well. I have to say, I've been pretty impressed with Christian Ramirez so far in 2025.
Yeah, for sure. We'll keep him with the California theme.
Yeah.
One of the other wild drunken matches of the weekend was San Diego and LAFC.
It's drunken, especially outside the stadium.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Place was packed. Place was busy. Snapdragon Stadium.
Yeah.
San Diego goes up 3-0 in the first half. And they're good goals. Minus the one really dumb mistake by somebody who does wear oven mitts on his hand that had a lot of hype coming in here. Can't drop that ball on that goal. We'll get to that. But
yeah.
I mean, it looked over. It looked over in the first half. But LA, I mean, to their credit, they were able to come back and make something happen. And then, I mean, if you look at like the quick overview of this game, you see 3 goals for San Diego, 2 goals for LAFC, and then you see a red card, and you think, all right, well, that red card had to be part of the game. And it really kind of wasn't, because all the goals, if I'm not mistaken, were scored before that red card was even issued.
Yeah.
But there were yellow cards going up like they were confetti, and that definitely played into, obviously, the red card a little bit later in the match. But all the stuff that you really need to know about this San Diego side happened in that first half. I thought, like, they offensively, they've been pretty good, and I thought this game they were really good.
Yeah, total of 7 yellow cards showed in that match. 20 total fouls. Of course, the red card got Jesus in the 53rd minute, which kind of stemmed, kind of put a stop to the LAC comeback bid. I do want to say as well as Zengus scoring his first goal for LAFC, getting on the score sheet, opening this count in MLS. So there's that for LAFC. But that's a bad loss for LAFC against an expansion club, against a club that stands to be a rival of yours, being in Southern California. This is not off to a good start for LAFC. And this is a team, like we've mentioned, the edge has been taken off this LAFC side dramatically. I don't think it's enough to cost Steve Toronto his job, but you've lost to Seattle, you've lost to Austin, you've lost to San Diego now on the road in the derby, and it's not a good way if you want to be the big club in Southern California. This is not the way to do it. Go into Snapdragon Stadium against the New Boys and lose, and not only lose, but see your guys sent off on a red card. So I imagine a lot of heads are drooping or were drooping for LAFC after that match, and so they're angry, they're frustrated. This is a match. I'm sure they looked at it and said, we have to win this match. Unfortunately for them, they go into Houston. Houston has struggled a lot, but if you're LAFC, you're looking at that and saying, we can't give Houston, we can't let Houston off at all. I mean, there was
some redemption, though. I mean, 3-2 it wasn't a blowout.
At least he fought back.
They were coming back until the red card.
Yeah, at least he fought back.
But Hugo Lloris can't make that mistake. I'm sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, that is abysmal. For a goalkeeper as experienced as him, that's a really bad moment, and a game-defining moment, because ultimately, like, if you don't let that goal in, you at least rescue a point. Look, I think
bad weekend for goalkeepers.
It is. Look, for LAFC, this has been a very frustrating start. They've been used to being some of the top dogs. They've been used to being some of the big guys. That all is kind of changing right now. They're kind of rebuilding the squad. This isn't the same squad that for the past better part of like 6 years-ish
throughout their existence
has been among the top dogs in the West. They're rebuilding, and they're trying to put players together a little bit that can play that style of soccer. The other question is, Steve Cherundolo, does this team need to go in another direction? I'm not saying that he's necessarily on the hot seat.
Yeah.
But is it time for a change at the manager position to kind of freshen things up? Kind of a similar situation as Sporting Kansas City. Cherundolo's been there for a minute.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that he is responsible for the team's poor form. Absolutely not.
I mean, he is, I think. I mean, I think it's a mixture of him and the front office, but I've said it, and I contend still that this team suffers from a lack of a cohesive identity. I think they think they know what they want to do, but then they brought in players that don't do and didn't fit, and we all knew weren't going to fit that kind of play style.
It's weird because their identity is like, let's bring in stars, right?
Yeah.
You started with Gareth Bale. You had these guys come in, and then you're like, okay, well, this is working. Let's continue. From Gareth Bale and Chiellini, you suddenly start bringing in, Giroud. He's been a total bust so far.
Yeah,
he hasn't worked out.
Because then you brought in Denny Bouanga, who
Bouanga worked though.
Best signings they've ever had.
Yeah,
but he's a transition, very fast winger. That's his time to shine.
And then they changed the play style and they wanted to start playing possession. It's like, okay, you got a player that's really good at this type of soccer and you've completely switched the book on him. And then you start playing him in other positions. He played as a striker in this game. That's not his best position. And so I think that's kind of stuff that you have to start looking at. Granted, I will say this LAFC side slightly rotated, not completely rotated, slightly rotated. Not an excuse for the overall poor performance. But they do have CCC midweek against the aforementioned Miami. But enough about LAFC. I want to talk about San Diego because I think, I heard Sydney talking about, okay, they wanted to come in and kind of beat up the new kids, and this is their game. I disagree. I think ever since San Diego has had this amazing start, I think people need to stop underestimating them. I think they need to realize that San Diego is here to play, and they play some really, really dang good soccer, some very fun soccer to watch. If you watch them play, it is they touch the ball really well. They pass it around. They create opportunities very, very effectively, and they did that in this game without Chucky Lozano for the most part. He did come in, I think, at some point in the game.
Yeah.
Probably in the second half. I don't have the exact minute.
72nd minute.
72nd minute. But he was out since game week 2 when, he went out like 30 minutes into that St. Louis game. And this team still continued to produce. They had, Anders Dreyer there to kind of help in that department. He's been fantastic. He's still going to be one of the best attackers in MLS this season, I think. And with Chucky Lozano, that team is going to be even more dangerous. They are, I believe, third in the West right now. Third for a team that we predicted, I think, on this show to be one of the spoon contenders. They've been a surprise, and I think we have to start giving them a little bit of respect. But even on a broader sense, looking at this Western Conference table, it has completely inverted from my expectations. I mean, Vancouver, Austin, San Diego, top 3. What?
No, right?
Yeah.
What's going on here? And then LAFC 8th, Seattle 12th, LA Galaxy 13th. Like this is some crazy mind blowing.
Seattle's going to do what they always do and go
second half of the season, right?
15 unbeaten. Get into top 4.
Galaxy.
But right now it looks pretty weird.
Let me just say this real quick, Henry, to your point about did LAFC underestimate San Diego? I don't think they underestimated them. I think there's this mindset of, okay, we're the longer established club. These guys are new. We need to come right off the bat and establish our identity in this derby. I think that's the mindset they came in with, not that we can just walk in and walk out with 3 points.
I think there's always this bias, though, and it's really hard to get over of the club that's coming in, like the expansion club. It's their first season. Yeah. It always feels like they maybe have a little bit more, I don't want to say pressure. It is pressure, but I think maybe folks just tend to look at them as the underdog no matter what.
Sure.
Even if, because San Diego, admittedly, all the points y'all just made are absolutely true. San Diego's playing really fun soccer.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me of some of the really fun versions of teams that we've seen. 2023 Columbus, last year's Galaxy, 2018 Atlanta United. Like, there's some that stand out.
2018 LAFC ?
Yeah. But it's just at some point San Diego needed to really put a stamp on a really big game, and especially in front of their home fans. And I'm glad now this is what we're talking about when they play at home and not anything else.
Exactly. Good on them to get their first home win. Congrats to San Diego.
You know who else got their first win?
New England. Yeah. All right, moving on.
Caleb Porter saves his job for a month.
I can't talk too much crap about them because Atlanta plays them in 2 weeks, and I'm not going to have somebody pulling up freaking receipts of me talking crap about them.
They're going to make a Rooted in the Stripes or whatever their thing is video, and it's going to be you talking crap about that.
Yeah. How do you feel now? And just real quick, how do you feel if you Red Bulls? Like, you lose to New England on the road, and kind of like LAFC San Diego, I don't think Red Bulls underestimated the Revs at all. I mean, you have to take every match seriously in this league. He gave New England their first win of the year. And granted, it came on a Carlos Heated penalty deep into stoppage time. So maybe on another day you walk out with a point, but I feel like if you're Red Bulls, you a Red Bulls fan, you're looking at this start of the season as well below expectations. 2 wins. Let me actually no, just 8 points from the first 15 or first 18. 2 wins, 2 losses, 2 draws. I mean, considering you came 1 win away from winning an MLS Cup last season, this is far below the standard that they'd be playing at this point of the season. It's still early, granted, but this is not a good tone setter for Red Bulls as we get into soon, close to double digits played in MLS as we get into April and May. Not a good loss for Red Bulls at the Revs, especially considering the issues the Revs have had all season long. Mainly stemming from last year, by the way.
Yeah, it's not a good loss for the Red Bulls, but it's also not one that I'd be too hung up on. Guess what New England hasn't done in 6 games? They haven't scored a goal from open play. They have an own goal that was gifted to them by NYCFC, and then 2 goals in this game, Carlos Heel set pieces. One was a very good free kick, and the other one was a penalty. That's just not sustainable, guys. And look, if you look at the stats, Red Bulls they look to have more momentum through some of the key moments in the game. If New England doesn't score those set pieces, I think this game goes differently.
Yeah.
And again, road games are hard, and this is the beginning of the season. And teams have off games too, and I think this was one for the Red Bulls. This was an off game for them. That's not an excuse, of course. I mean, you have to go out and win the games, especially when you're going up against a team that before then hadn't scored a goal for their own. But I'm not going to say that this is like season breaking for them. This isn't a rock bottom thing. If anything, this is a game that means more for New England because Caleb Porter gets to keep his job for a little bit longer.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's a struggle bus for sure.
Right.
I mean, we all said it last week, and then the Peter Vermes thing happened, but that seat is sizzling right now. And this doesn't, I think for all the reasons you just mentioned, this doesn't really cool it down much. It's not like you went out and you emphatically beat anybody. You got lucky. So we'll see. But they're in a rough place still.
Yeah, just looking quickly at their schedule, Tyler Henry coming up at Cincinnati, at Atlanta United, home against NYCFC, at Charlotte. That's not an easy stretch, guys. Because after Charlotte, they go to TFC. Those 4 matches, though, aren't easy. And there's a possibility, not guaranteed, there's a possibility that Caleb Porter, depending on how these results go, guys, may not make it out of the month of April. Seriously. I mean,
we said that about March.
we said about March. I get it. But no, if you look at this, you look at the schedule, it's not a gauntlet, but it's, a bit difficult. So,
yeah.
Okay, hang on. I think tradition. I think it's tradition at this point. I have to ask y'all, who will be the next manager sacked in MLS this season?
Well, Ben Olsen is making a great case for himself.
That's what I was about to say.
Really good.
I was going to say Ben Olsen. I think right now he's closer than Caleb Porter because he hasn't got a win yet.
So. I think
and that game against Portland was very poor from Houston. Dude, they had 1 shot on target, and it was the Franco Escobar goal. They were attacking so much, but their shots were so bad. I was in the MLS chat literally typing, I'm like, dude, what are these Houston shots, dude? If they could at least put 1 on target, there'd be a chance, but it's like they're a team of Luis Araújos.
Oh, that means you got to put $11 in the jar.
Dang it. Worth it.
Real quick, though, what does that say about Houston that your only shot on goal is Franco Escobar scoring?
That means you somehow channeled
playoff legend.
Playoff Franco.
He must have thought it was the postseason. That's the only explanation.
That was a carbon copy of the goal he scored in MLS Cup against the Portland Timbers.
Yes, I got the Timbers.
They may just whatever you had
play the Timbers every week.
And just pretend you're playing the Timbers in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in 2018.
Yeah.
Franco Escobar score all the goals you need. You're fine.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
All right.
Champions
Freaking
Cup.
New England. But
Yeah, I
Ben
know.
Olsen's a good shout. Still
Yeah.
think it'll be Caleb Porter, but whatever. It could be either way.
Yeah.
Take us through CONCACAF Champions Cup. Where are we at?
I will run through that. We've got some really, really good games between tomorrow and Wednesday. We start off at 9:15 p.m. Club America versus Cruz Azul. Huge clash of Mexican Titans. Then after that, 11:15, LA Galaxy hosting Tigres. That is going to be a tough one for the Galaxy. Like we said, they can't catch a break. So they have a tough one there, and they have to win. I feel like they have to win because you are definitely not going into El Volcán and winning. So get what you can at home. Cincinnati put up a good fight against them, so hopefully they can replicate that. Then Wednesday, 9:30 p.m., Vancouver hosts Pumas. Another big game for them. Hopefully, if they can take Pumas out, you have a very good shot at having two MLS teams in that final. We'll see.
Right.
And then later that night, 11:30, two MLS teams clash. LAFC versus Inter Miami. Huge clash of two teams. LAFC looking to bounce back from that weekend loss to San Diego, and Inter Miami looking to continue their unbeaten run so far under Javier Mascherano.
I think if you're Galaxy, you said it, Henry. I think if you're Galaxy, you almost have to win in the first leg, considering how the Galaxy have been beaten up, considering the way this season has gone. Ultimately, I think they may score one, maybe draw Tigres, but they have no shot winning the second leg. Absolutely no shot. Vancouver Pumas, maybe a little better matchup for Vancouver, but like Galaxy, in the way you may have to try to score as many goals as you can at home, because it's going to be really tough to go on the road to beat Liga MX side in their own place. It traditionally is. And it's a slightly better matchup than Galaxy Tigres, but I think it's still going to be a tough matchup nonetheless. And LAFC Miami, I feel like that could go either way. I feel like if you're LAFC, you got to get your attack clicking. You got to take things to Miami early and often. Test that defense. Test straight calendar. Whoever's in net, test them. Make them work. Maybe you get one or two going to Fort Lauderdale next week. I'm not going to say if they lose this match, this first leg, the tie is over, but you do have to win, I think, because Miami are just in tremendous form, better form than any team in MLS at this point. So 3 really big matches for MLS clubs in Champions Cup this week.
I think for me, the LAFC Miami match, I feel like LAFC might feel, for all the reasons we mentioned earlier, they have something to prove, but I also feel like Denny Bouanga is going to be very irritated because he had a crappy game this past weekend. He had less than 40 touches the entire match. He also lost 9 duels.
Yeah.
Just a bad day at the office. And that is the type of guy that tends to rebound pretty well after having a rough one. So mix that in with the form and the desire to go and beat up Messi. I think LAFC might have a pretty good shot of getting out pretty ahead. I really do. But it's Miami, so you never really know.
For me right now, Miami is the favorite in that matchup. Just the overall quality is better. The form is better. It's going to be hard to stop them. But if LAFC can at least get a lead in this leg, I think that might be the confidence booster they need to then take it to Miami and grind out the result.
Who moves on? This may be a simple question, but who moves on? I mean, you got to say Tigres, Pumas, and Miami at this point, right? Among the matches we just mentioned.
I'm not counting out Vancouver.
No? Yeah. I'll side with Vancouver on this one. Pumas is obviously a powerhouse in Mexico. They're among the top teams right now for Liga MX. But Vancouver has been one of the surprises in MLS right now.
Yeah.
And they play some very good soccer. I think the question marks will revolve around Ryan Gauld's availability and some of the players, because they lost Andres Cubas this weekend. Sam Adekugbe is also out. You had a few injuries, and I think that might hamper them a bit. But the question marks revolved around them also in the previous tie in the round of 16, and they still came out of that. So I think it all kind of hinges on this first game. If they can get a good result there, then I think they have a solid chance of grinding it out in Mexico. Tigres for me moves on, Inter Miami, and then Club America.
What is CONCACAF doing, by the way, scheduling these matches after 8 p.m. Pacific time? Do they not care about the East Coast at all?
No love for us on the East Coast.
Good night. 11:30 Eastern kickoff? What are
you gotta be settled in, man. You gotta be locked in. It's like watching the NBA at times, man.
Right. No, CONCACAF is worse.
Yeah, for sure.
Tons worse.
That's rough.
Good grief. 11:30.
So
on a Tuesday and a Wednesday.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, they get the whole week. Why don't you?
But like, if any of those games were played here in Atlanta, it would be empty.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna jump to the matches to watch. Really quickly, as a Bayern Munich fan, I'm gonna hit on Tadaya's comment. Is Thomas Müller coming to MLS? Supposed to leave at the end of the year. If so, which team? I'll say possibly. I'll give it a 70%, which I know is pretty high. But if he comes here, I don't think it's going to be any team that I think most people would expect.
Sporting Kansas City.
You gonna say Sporting Kansas City? That's what I was gonna say.
I was gonna say St. Louis. I guess we're in the right geographical area.
Yeah,
why
sure.
St. Louis?
I think at his age, but his IQ and his ability to hold the ball and play smart, on both sides of the ball, would handle things really, really well in St. Louis, and also give them an attacking threat that they don't quite have. But lots of influence there. I think he might feel a little bit at home to a degree. I think it would just fit there.
It's a nice German contingent in St. Louis, isn't there?
Yeah.
So I might play into it. I could see him maybe with an LA team, maybe with the LAFC. Why not bring in another European legend?
He would not fit at LAFC at all. But they're going to do it because
that's what I mean, they've been holding out for Griezmann, and at this point, I feel like that's just never going to happen.
No, you're still signed half the French national team. Giroud, Lloris, Griezmann, they're looking for. So
bringing them all over.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'd say LAFC probably if he comes to MLS.
That would be my bet LAFC. Also.
Yeah,
I mean that's the safe bet.
Yeah. Or something random like Houston for some reason.
Who has his discovery rights?
Cowboy dreams.
Yeah. Who has his discovery rights? I wonder.
That's a great question. I'm always curious
about that.
New England.
It's so fun how in MLS you have to worry about who has discovery rights.
Yep. I know.
Hey, just got paid.
Chicago Fire, huh?
Yeah, Neymar.
Coaching Berhalter coaching Thomas Müller.
Yeah,
we have that on the bingo card.
Right.
No. All right. Yeah. Who wants to go first? What's your match to watch for the weekend?
Why don't you go first?
I'll go first. We just got done talking about them.
Okay.
SKC in St. Louis. I think
Midwest Classico.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like it's a good matchup. I'm always intrigued by the first match or two after a team loses their coach, but especially a dude that was so ingrained in everything at Kansas City. But it's a derby as well. So like I want to see how Kansas City's play changes. Because I don't think you're not going to go and try to implement an entirely new style, but I do think it opens up maybe a little bit of the freedom for some of these players to express themselves in ways that they weren't able to under Peter Vermes. And there's always the new coach bump, whatever, interim coach. St. Louis is playing freaking good soccer defensively. Yeah. It's just an intriguing one to me.
I'll save this before I give you mine. I don't know if things will change too much under Zavagnin. He's been with Sporting Kansas City forever.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the play style would change. Maybe you see a couple of technical tweaks to his preferences, but yeah, I don't know if we'll see too many extreme changes with him. But yeah, that on paper it looks kind of boring because Kansas City has no wins this season versus St. Louis, who have barely conceded this season. So it's an interesting choice in the Midwest there. I'm going to say Vancouver, Colorado. Vancouver, we already talked about them. Will be on short rest because of Champions Cup. Interested to see what the 11 looks like. Interested to see what involvement Ryan Gauld, like you said, Henry, earlier, has in that match. If he doesn't come back for Champions Cup, I can see him. I don't know. You need that match too much on Wednesday, so I think if he's available, you give him a go. Colorado, Zach Steffen has been in tremendous form for the Rapids, and I mean, who knows? He could play himself back as the number one keeper for the U.S. men's national team at this rate.
At this rate,
yeah. Considering what Matt Turner's kind of not really done.
if he can
I
show
can
that he
barely-
wants to be
At
there,
least Zach plays. I'll say that. At least Zach
and at least
plays.
if he can show that he wants to be there, that's a
No.
step up over like 9 of the 11 people on the pitch in this past international
Yeah.
window.
Yeah, but no.
I'm still not over that crap.
Yeah, I know. But credit to Zach. He has been in tremendous form. He's been a different player since coming to Colorado. So Vancouver versus Colorado is my match to watch for match day 7, Henry.
Yeah, a solid pick for sure. I'm going to go with San Diego versus Seattle, another Western Conference clash.
Yeah.
Look, I can't stop talking. I can't stop saying good things about San Diego. There's just brand of soccer is super attractive, super fun to watch. Really, any game of theirs, I have to watch. And this game could be Chucky Lozano's first start since he got injured, which brings a little bit more promise of goals in this game. And then they're going up against Seattle, one of the team that I predicted would finish on top of the West, the team that I think a lot of us have placed high expectations on going into this season. And they've been stumbling a little bit, but they need to start making back up some of that ground. And this could be a starting point for them. Now, they just signed a new, I think he's a DP winger. He might, is he a DP?
I don't think it's a DP.
He's not a DP, but he is a new winger, Ryan Kent. So we might
use with Roy Kent.
Yeah, no relation to
he's
Roy.
here, he's there, he's every freaking where. But he might make his debut. I don't know. I think he might be on visa watch, but there's potential for that to be his debut. So might watch for that. But also just a clash of two teams that I expect to be very good overall throughout the season.
Good pick.
I like it.
Obviously, the intriguing team right now because of what they've done in year one. So,
Good show. All right. Appreciate everybody hanging out for MLS Monday. Y'all go check out scarvesandspikes.com. Like we said before, go join the patreon.com/scarvesandspikes. Go on the website, get you some merch. Get you some merch. There's plenty of options. Go to the website, go to the shop menu item, and come hang out in the Discord with us.
Yeah.
Come join the chats, join the watch-alongs.
And the polls.
Yeah, and the polls. We've had a lot of polls going lately.
Everyone loves a poll.
And make sure you're subscribed because it really does help us. We truly appreciate it. So,
by the way,
your friends to go subscribe.
Also, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeart with the audio version of this show, audio version of really all our content here at Scarves and Spikes, Atlanta United, MLS related. So definitely give us a follow. Thanks to all of you who do already. Definitely spread the word. Tell your friends and enemies, acquaintances.
We like a good fight.
Everyone you know.
We'll even make a channel just for y'all to argue with each other.
Yeah.
Waffle House channel.
The Waffle House channel.
Waffle House 3 a.m. channel.
Hey, let's go. That's a good idea, actually. I like that.
Why not?
All right. We appreciate it, y'all. It's been fun. And we'll be back Wednesday. Y'all come hang out with us for the Atlanta United show.
Yeah.
Back at the Benz on Saturday.
Tyler, you going to be there?
I'll be there this time. So sorry, guys. I'm so sorry.
Guaranteed loss.
I don't know. Maybe a draw. We'll see.
You know who else will be there? Lucho Acosta.
Dude, if anybody loses an aerial duel to this man, I might.
Sydney said the same about Maxi.
I said the same about Morales.
Yeah, dude.
I'm going to throw my laptop.
I will lose it.
Yeah.
I will be uncontrollable in the press box. gonna sit down at the very end by myself.
Right.
In the timeout,
Yeah.
the sin bin.